Well, on the phone line with me here, Shelton School Superintendent Wyeth Jessee, as we're kind of talking now through the summer and just kind of efforts to keep everybody up to date on what's going on. It's a lot of moving parts, not only with state and the state funding, but also kind of on a national level. Wyeth, how you doing? Happy summer to you.
Happy summer to you, Jeff.
You are while there's not necessarily a lot of work moving through the district right now, there's a lot that you're keeping your eyes on when it comes to the federal level, I think. And I've been seeing a lot of bills being floated, different ways, I guess executive orders too from the president on different funding things that are out there. And it seems like there's a lot that's happening and a lot has happened in this last couple of weeks that are really putting added impacts on especially some of the kids in the district. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure, Jeff. So, you know, 9% of our funding comes from the federal government, and those are for programmatic services. You know, your big bucket issues are for kids who qualify or schools that qualify for free and reduced lunch, right? So your poverty level, and then special education, food, and then you have, about a dozen other grants that districts qualify, like Shelton, for other like smaller things, things that include native education, homelessness, and also professional development.
So,
And yeah,
yeah.
so anyway, those are the grants, and I mean, 9% of a budget when there was already cuts coming off the last state ledge really impact us. And I'll happy to get in as much depth as your listeners willing to understand. It gets a little technical, but here's an easy one for you. Homelessness is made up of a combination of federal and state dollars. The state ledge cut and thinks they will not fund it after this next year. So there's already a lot of cuts on that. And the federal government just said that they were going to cut at least 70%. So it's almost like nothing. That wasn't a big amount of money to begin with for the Shelton School District, but when you're relying on, $180,000 to help get kids when they're having a hard time getting to school, because it's big for transportation and getting some meals and some basic needs so that kids can get, to school and feel safe, that those are big deals for us. Um, right at the bat. And those are kind of kids that couch surf, right, Jeff? I mean,
Yeah.
like, if you couch surf, I mean, I know a lot of people listening are like, wait, I did that as a high schooler. Well, you can qualify for, homelessness, what they call McKinney-Vento monies. And
So,
so it's just a real
yeah.
hard deal. Yeah.
Explain, yeah, that's a good explanation. So when if there is a student identified in the district as homeless and
Yeah.
that kind of triggers the McKinney-Vento portion of this. Explain again what additional services that they are that are allocated towards them, and how long has something like that been going on? I mean, is that a recent thing? Is it 10 years old, 20 years old, something like that?
Yeah, this has been going on for decades. How far back? I'm not 100% familiar with McKinney-Vento, but this is a big deal for the last multiple decades, and um, getting kids to school is a big deal when you don't have stable housing. Uh, so families can be in crisis. They're moving in and out. Some are sleeping in cars, obviously. As I mentioned, couch surfing. So if you qualify for those services, one of the big ones is about transportation, because you may even live outside the district. So they want to provide stability for those kids, Jeff, right? Because if you're moving, you're having housing instability, you can be moving all around.
Yeah.
Uh, and so we can provide transportation using those homeless funds to get a bus or a small van to get those kids, and so that they can get to school that they're where they've been going, where their friends are and their teacher is. Because continuity of service for kids, especially kids that are experiencing some kind of traumatic events, that is a huge deal. This homelessness grant is one of those. Food is another, right? And you also have before and after school tutoring. This is all those federal monies that are not only at risk, they've already been identified for cuts.
And so when it comes to that, you mentioned it was 9% of your budget or something like that. So you've already passed the budget for the 25-26 school year, and
Yep.
you have already negotiated with the teachers unions contracts and things like that. But what happens then if the feds come out and they say, well, we're definitely cutting all of this and we're likely to cut even more? What are then, are you able to revisit the budgets or the contracts, or like where does this put then? Because you're already in, got some fiscal issues that we've talked about over these last couple of months, but like where does that put
Sure.
you in what you're able to do and what you have to do?
Yeah, budgets are planned in years in advance, right? Because you're trying to build programs and services over time. Nothing is, to a lot of people, I think they just think, like, oh, you just erect a school, you got to open up the doors and you're providing services. Well, as we talked about, like reading, well, we've been working on reading and developing that, and now we have a really robust, or we're only in our second year of a robust summer program that we've been doing, and it's taken 4 years to erect. Well, those using some of those monies, and so even coming up on this school year, we had already done our planning starting in January, and then finalizing those things in April. And the thing that you mentioned is that, we have to, by state statute, provide a contract to teachers by May 15th if we're keeping them or not. And so we offer those contracts, and that's who we own. When we were notified, literally a couple, 3 weeks ago, that we were in question of how much money we're going to get in these federal dollars, that causes us to have to freeze, stop, and reevaluate what we can do when everybody's already contracted and the budget's already planned. I mean, I don't have, we're down to, as I mentioned, we're just down to basic operations here. There's nothing on the top here to further cut. I'm just operational bills and the staff we have to provide services.
So this this is, a lot of this is kind of high level federal, state governmental stuff. And
Yep.
as the feds make their decision and it ripples down to the state, is that, does the state, are they coming in at all, and either the ledge or OSPI or whoever, do they come in and evaluate what has just happened on the federal level and look to, I mean, the states doesn't have any money. We've had talked about that for months with our representatives as well, in Olympia,
Yep.
their struggle. So where
Yeah.
is the state able at all to come back and look at these things, or is this, I mean, this is going to have to, I guess, be next session maybe stuff, or
Well, let me just start where I think I would like everybody to, before they, like roll their eyes in the back of their head of like, oh my God, there's a lot of bureaucracy and technical talk, right?
right.
Like you said, is this what this looks like? Just like I had at the last board meeting, I had a very intelligent young girl and her father come to the board meeting and say, hey, where's our librarian going to be for next year? And, we've had to make those kind of cuts for a librarian. We're going to have some coverage. Kids are going to have access to books in the library. They have classroom libraries in for all ELA classes and all AK through the 12th grade. So kindergarten through 12th grade, we got books in every classroom for the kids, for reading. But, we'll have access to the library, but I don't have where I'm going to get the money for the library is because that's where all these monies get cut, Jeff, either both state and federal to help fund this for things just like those kind of services. And then, like I said, busing for kids that are homeless or food services for kids who qualify for free and reduced lunch or nursing services, counselors. Those are the things that just go by the wayside. They show up angry. I'm saying we don't have enough money. The money's cut. And so call your state legislators your best deal or your congresswoman or congressman and talk to them. Share what services you want to have for your kid for public schools, because the money that we have is very slim, and I don't know how that is all going to unravel. I don't have a crystal ball about the federal level at all, and I have no the state I is also facing a lot of cuts as you mentioned, and I don't know what they're going to choose to do. But what I can do is say there's going to be a reduction in the services that school districts can offer families and students. And I would just say, if you want to prioritize that, call it again. Call your representatives.
Where, so you, so if I was to look at the reductions in services that are happening and the kind of where the Shelton School District is operating now, you may be able to do this, you may not. But if you were to give me like a year, right?
Mm.
What year, where would we be at where this level of service was what it was before, there was a lot of additional things offered, mental health, the McKinney-Vento, these types of things. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like how far back are we having to look to where the services offered match the year? I don't
The
even know if that
funding.
makes, yeah, like the funding.
Uh,
Does that make
that's a.
sense?
It does. I think I understand you. Uh, I would want to make sure everybody else understands. The budgets for education and all these monies. The things you already hear, like, oh, there's a lot of different types of monies that are for specific purposes. It's not just one bucket of money that lands at the feet of school districts at all. We're talking about dozens and dozens of different pots of money that we have to allocate and do things for. And so by doing that, there's things that get prioritized and deprioritized over time. Just like you mentioned, over COVID, obviously technology and mental health services were some of the things that were really highly prioritized. But those monies have gone away, and then you get new grants. Grants usually come in the form of three years. So, right, going back, you'd have to go back into pretty good times pre-COVID to kind of get a sense, right, Jeff, of like what it was in stable economic times with those kind of what I think most families would consider basic education, right, for counselors, librarians, nurses, mental health, safety and security personnel, athletics, stuff like that. The problem is going to be coming, right? They're just going to go push this back to, well, who's going to pick up the tab when you have these less amounts of monies
Right.
in both federal and state? And so then it's going to be on communities, and those communities with a lot of money tend to benefit because they can raise the dollars. Communities with less money and funding are just going to be the ones that suffer more.
And
And
that,
that's
yeah.
that's I'm not telling you anything new there, but I think it's worth mentioning because that's why I came to Shelton. I came from communities of poverty. That's what I was raised with, and it was just my mom and a single family. And I'm just like, public education's what can advance people and give them choice. I don't know why our kids have to suffer more than others that have more privilege. That's not right.
And there is, the possibility that this it could continue on through the next school year and beyond. Really, I mean, we're not quite sure, like you mentioned, what the feds are up to. We're not quite sure what the state is going to have to do when it gets back into session here in the late fall, and works on it, because it's not a budget year either. So they're kind of, who knows really what they're going to work on or look at when it comes to revenues and how that changes. There were some other changes that I think, talking with our 35th district reps, kind of adversely impacted rural districts like Shelton as well. So there's a lot of things that are kind of tough to look at moving forward.
There is, and our job is to provide the best education we can. The kids who walk through the doors in the Shelton School District are providing great things. I mean, you've seen the outstanding outcomes we're able to get with kids, higher
Right. Yeah.
graduation rate, higher kids getting ninth grade on track, higher literacy rates right there in third grade. That's so key. We've gone from literally like 20% to 40s in the low 40s of the number of kids meeting standard in reading or exceeding it. Like that's great. I don't want it to fall at all, and I want to provide those other kinds of services our kids do because it's easy to fall through the crack when you don't have those other things. When kids are not feeling well, we want to have a nurse there and available. We want to make sure that kids can get to school, if they're experiencing their couch surfing. Um, we want to have field trips that allow kids to go see things that, in real life. Those are the things, those are the pressures that where we're at. And we're just going to maximize, the taxpayers' dollars, as slim as they are. I just also want to be real with everyone to say it's not going to be that same level of service that we were able to provide in the past, whether that's our district or any other district right now. And I believe that I could probably say that for every district across the United States almost, right? With this experiencing in the cuts and in funding from the feds, and to a degree, I know most states are also having a fiscal you know, difficulties, just like Washington.
You've had a couple of board meetings here in the last couple of weeks, and there's been a lot of continued conversations on, fiscal responsibility and things like that. What can you say a little bit about how you guys are looking with your new finance director, looking at the books and how things are shaking out? I know there's a lot of folks in the community that talk a lot about this too, when it comes to bills and things like that. Where are we at looking ahead with especially Clinton, the new finance director?
Yeah. So Clinton Sherman came on board in November, got right on it, dove into our accounting practices and where things are at on the accounting ledger. And then working with the state, just making sure that we have everything loaded, that are all the payables that are out there, and talk to every vendor and told them, I said, call everybody, I want to see at least call them twice to just make sure that we're up to date on all of understanding what the Shelton School District owes people. And so we're up to date, got it in there, working to pay it down, and we're gonna, hold to it. I want to get on the other side of, paying the bills. When I got in the district, I got phone calls from people about why isn't this getting paid? And I was trying to investigate it myself. And, we were able to find out some of the practice we have and doubling down with our vendors and able to, like I said, identify what all those dollars are. We're going to be able to, pay down about 2.5 million as of just January, from January to the end of this fiscal year, which is the end of August. $2.5 million in savings to pull that down, and then by the end of next year, we'll be in the plus. The problem that happens now, which I don't want people to conflate, is we can keep saving, but if our revenue keeps getting cut in the middle of the summer and unexpectedly, it makes it harder, obviously, to generate further savings into the general fund.
And the state is still kind of overseeing some aspects of this too, to kind of make
Yep.
sure everything is
Yeah,
going
we
well.
meet at least quarterly. I've got another meeting coming up with them, especially as you finish your reporting package to the state. So we have to put our entire finances, how we're closing our books, and then also building the budget. As you mentioned earlier, we're finalizing that so that the board can ultimately approve the budget for next year at this next board meeting. And so, yeah, so they keep an eye on it and all our packages and make sure all the numbers match right up. Because those numbers have not. We've had a hard time matching those numbers for years.
Well, we're going to, start talking a little bit more on air and on the KMAS podcast about things going on in the district. I think I remember, with your predecessor, we met, I think, almost weekly to kind of just update things on what's going on, and it did give people a better sense of whether or not they necessarily agreed with what was happening. At least they got the idea that you are moving forward and trying to be, as transparent with the information as possible. So not every conversation we have is going to be as deep into the fiscal weeds as this one, I guess, but we're going to highlight a lot of things that are going on in the district here, moving forward more. But it is important to know, I mean, especially as changes are happening now in real time on the federal level that put a lot of impact on rural communities, especially districts like the Shelton School District that have kind of a unique makeup there when it comes to the student body. So we'll be back again weekly to kind of talk about things here on the radio. So yeah, I mean, I think right there's a good opportunity to just end that chat, and we'll be all done and move on until next week, and we'll have maybe some different things to talk about. How's that sound?
Sounds great. Yeah, and there's a lot going on for the district, and love to serve as the source of information for folks so they can get it straight from us about what exactly is happening. Because there's a lot. Yeah, I know fiscal is a really hot issue, and especially when you get cut in the state and federal levels, people do need to know because it does ultimately lead to a change in the services that are
Sure.
provided.
Yeah. Superintendent of the Shelton School District, Wyeth, Jessee here on KMAS, and we'll continue these updates. You can always be involved with the school board meetings, and there's other ways to reach out and connect with not only him, but different members of the district to kind of also see what's going on there. So thank you for your time. Good to hear from you.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. I really appreciate it. I'll see you soon.